Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfound Live for September 9th of 2024. Thank you all for joining in as the live show happens every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, thanks to all of you who listen to this as a podcast, audio only, sometime after it comes out on Monday night. Thanks to all of you as well. Maybe you can already tell that my voice is about back to 100%. I have to admit, in listening to last Monday's live show, I could tell my voice was still not good. And actually, I've been giving my voice a little bit of a vacation from singing and practicing any singing. And instead, I have been watching some tutorials and things like that for when I get back to practicing again, which probably will be later this week. I want to make sure my voice is back to 100% because whatever I did to it over 2 weeks ago, as I explained, wow, not good. And I think that live show from 2 weeks ago really made it worse. I think I told you last week that whatever that Unfound Live date would have been, maybe August 26th. I got up that next morning and could barely get anything out. And if you don't know, as long as you're singing properly, talking is way harder on your voice than singing is. You may not realize that, but it is true that if you are using good singing technique, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have this great range or anything else, but as long as you are using good singing technique, it's easier on your vocal cords than talking. Because with talking, you're doing a lot of breathing. You're speaking in kind of you're using like the same vocal cords over and over and over. It's a very small. It would be like just doing one exercise for your bicep all the time. Eventually, that muscle's going to start to weaken. And, if you're trying to use it all the time, it's going to weaken. So, and when you're talking, taking a lot of breath, a lot of air going across your vocal cords, which is not good. That is what dries your voice out, and that's when the problems start. So, but when you're singing and you're doing what they call glottal compression, and you're holding back on the air, using as little air as possible. And of course, if you have at least using different parts of your vocal cords, everything's getting used instead of just one small part. It actually can be better. But of course, we know a lot of singers blow out their voices on tour or whatever, but really it's because of bad technique, not because of singing in general. But my voice is feeling good. But like I said, I'm going to give it a few more days just to be safe. There is no rush here, but I'm continuing to educate myself. I want to remind all of you, as you are watching and or listening tonight, please give this video a thumbs up. Helps us with the YouTube algorithms. I say that every week. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Share it, like it. If you are finding this live show for the first time, please subscribe to this channel. And if you'd like to take it a step further, please hit the join button below if you are watching on YouTube. That's the only place. I know you could also watch on Facebook, but you will not see that button on Facebook. The only place the button is, where it is located, is below the screen, my little box here on YouTube. Hit the join button. You get some things that other people do not. And as I stressed in a post on both the Facebook, in the Facebook discussion group and on the page, some of the things that have gone on behind the scenes, not just for Unfound, but for all podcasters out there, where what we make and how we make that money has greatly diminished this year for no perceptible reason. And in fact, I should state, it's kind of been going on, not maybe so much for here at Unfound, because this is really a secondary or a third outlet for the podcast, but a lot of channels that are YouTube exclusively. Maybe you've been hearing about how they're restricting certain content and restricting ads and demonetizing and all of that stuff. That's been going on as well. Although, like I said, here at Unfound, we haven't noticed that as much because we're not YouTube specific. Whereas in the podcasting world, on iTunes, Spotify, everywhere else, iTunes in particular must have started sometime in February, I'm going to guess. They did something, and it really changed how downloads are calculated and listens and everything else. And who knows if it's accurate or not? I have no idea, but it's really hurt everybody. So, and I've even seen since then some of you commenting of how some podcasts you were listening to kind of went away in that March, April, May time of this year. And I can guarantee you, I can almost guarantee it's because of that. Like a lot of YouTube channels have gone away as well due to demonetizing. If it's not, you're going to put the work in and hours and hours and hours, and then for some reason it's some weird algorithm thing. Why bother? So please keep that in mind. Of course, patreon.com/unfound podcast is across the bottom of the screen, or you can contribute through hitting the join button below, or if you were watching tonight, you can hit the little green button there and the super chat button, and you can contribute that way as well. So I got a fantastic show. You know what? I'm going to turn the air. I'm getting a little sweaty here, so I'm going to turn down the air conditioning just a few more degrees. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, now I just can feel already just sitting here. It's kind of weird. Even though we're into September, still a little warm, but I thought that I had the air conditioning down enough, but maybe not. I am wearing all black here. Maybe that doesn't help. So I have a fantastic show for you tonight. As you could see in the headline, I want to talk about a woman who was found dead in her office. I want to talk about this jogger mystery, this woman who went jogging, went missing, and then was found deceased. That happened down there in the Fort Myers area. I'm familiar with that area. I've played disc golf down there many times. Down in that North Fort Myers, Estero area. And then I also want to talk about how luck plays a role, and that has to do with a missing person's body being found by accident. And so often that is what has happened with unfound disappearances as well, remains being found by accident. And I got some other things that I want to pass along to you tonight. I want to talk a little bit more about Steve Pankey tonight. Going to go a little more in depth. I did get a letter from him. In fact, 2 letters from him since last Monday. But, well, I'll get into it when we get to that. So otherwise, what's been going on with me since the last time we got together? Last Wednesday, my trivia team won again. That's 3 weeks in a row that we won over there at Finley's, which has been pretty nice. That is a record for us. So after not winning like at all the first, I don't know, 5 weeks or something, I think we've won 4 out of the last 5 weeks we won. And then we missed the final question. And then we won the last 3 weeks. So we're on a little bit of a roll there, which is nice. Getting our self-esteem back, I guess you could say. And then for me personally, on a Saturday evening, I went out by myself to this place where I've won before called Sharks. And I ended up coming in 4th out of 16 teams playing by myself. Of course, most of these other teams are maybe average 3 or 4 people per team. I came in 4th. I think the winning team had 118 points. I had 111. Actually kind of had a chance to win if I would have trusted my instincts a little bit. But I suppose any team could, any of the top teams maybe could say that. So I was not too disappointed in coming in 4th. If we remember the week before, maybe 2 weeks ago, I was actually leading going to the final question and missed it. Well, this week, it was an easier final question. A lot of teams got it, so there's no chance to move up. So that was nice. And I continue to have a gift card over there from winning before, so I get to eat for free. So I'll keep doing that as long as I have gift certificates to use at that place that I've earned by myself. I will show up there, although I will not be able to go there this coming weekend because I'm going to a disc golf tournament in Floral City, just north of here. So we'll have to do that in 2 weeks. So trivia is going really, really well. Finally, most of this summer has not been too good. And myself and the team have been able to turn it around over the last month, really, since I got back from seeing my dad get back and we start winning again. I'm not saying I'm necessarily the reason for that, but I'm just saying that I think finally we had so much bad luck in the summer that it had to bounce back eventually. We're too good of a team to keep losing, missing questions and everything. It had to bounce back eventually, and it's been bouncing back, so that's nice. Moving on, I've already talked about my voice. Like I said, you can tell that I'm very relaxed. My voice feels pretty good. We'll see how it feels tomorrow morning. And I've taken a little bit of a singing vacation, and we'll see what happens there. And maybe later this week, I'm going to continue the time that I usually use to sing every day. I'm using that instead to actually do a little Unfound work, but also listen to some singing tutorials and some scales and things. Just listen and try to. I don't want these days just to go by without me doing anything. I've put too much work into it. After a year and a half, 5 days a week, I'm going to continue to work at it. But just like I said, a couple weeks ago, just went a little too far. Somehow just did something that's really the worst my voice has ever been in my life, probably, to be honest. And it was no good. And I even think I even said that one trivia night I went to with my team, I didn't even talk the whole time. I talked, but it was way down here and I could barely say anything. So, really got to watch that. That's no good. No good. And I've actually ordered I'm going to start taking a collagen supplement that is supposed to help with your vocal cords as a recommendation. And because that's what your vocal cords are made out of, collagen. So this is supposed to help. If you do have any issues, if you are using your vocal cords a lot, if you are singing and talking and everything, I'm going to try that out and see how that works. And I got one more thing, but let's being that we're about 15 minutes in, let's see who is here tonight. Everything gets in first. Good to see you, Everything Legends. Hello, Milo. Hello to you. What's going on? Karen, Charlie, what's going on? Mary Jane from Maryland. That makes sense. Mary Jane from Maryland. And once again, I'm throwing it out there. Anybody have any questions that you'd like me to answer? I'm always ready to do what I can to fulfill your curiosity about things that are going on. You have to keep it PG, and as long as it's not too personal, doesn't have to be true crime related. Mary Jane says she's enjoying the Patreon membership, and I always look forward to the lives. Thank you, Mary Jane. Thank you so much. Appreciate the support. Amy says she is melting in California, and I said, well, that's very Wizard of Oz of you, Amy. Brutal heat, but thing is, it's September. It should be cooling off at least a little bit. Maybe not. Hello, Kathy, Carrie, Assistant Carrie. Good to see you tonight. Sarah from New York. Good to see you. Charlie is leaving. Be back towards the end of the show. Got to take the boys to dinner tonight. I'll be interested to hear where you take them, Charlie, if you are still listening. And I have something, by the way, Charlie, I have something to tell you about when you're going to be in here, something that is going to maybe get in the way of our plans that I'm just finding out now, but I'll talk to you later about that. Sarah Hazel from New Zealand. Hazel, you should know that I heard from, of course, Hazel, we covered the disappearance of Athel Turner from New Zealand. When was that? Last year or something? I got a message from his sister, the guest, today. It was so good to hear from her. Of course, Athel is still missing. Hello, Stephanie. And where are you, TV? Hello to you. And Hazel says the trivia team has gotten its mojo back. It seems so, but that is just something kind of from week to week, I guess, Hazel. We shall see. It all comes down to that all-important final question, Hazel. You can do so many things so well. And if you don't know that final question, man, it can just ruin everything. But we've been getting them recently. Hello, Jill. Sup to you. Kathy says, no, in September, SoCal still hot. Last year in October, I was still using the AC. All right, Kathy's setting me straight. Hazel said, we just had the second warmest winter ever in Northern Hemisphere Europe, hottest year. I guess, Hazel, I really can't tell. I'm in Florida. It's just warm most of the time. I really can't tell one way or the other. The only thing that really happened to me this summer was that one tournament where I was sick and I played. And I think I told all of you that I had bordering on heat stroke or whatever else. That was a hot day, but really it was because I was already sick. That was not good. That was kind of scary. That's my purse. I don't know you. That's an interesting name there. Question. What is your standard criteria for Unfound Now episodes? Do you take suggestions? If so, how? The standard criteria for the Unfound Now series is that, and that's the monthly series, comes out towards the end of the month. Of course, I just did the recent one with William Orellano, which is very similar to a story that I want to cover tonight. The standard is that, of course, the missing person is still missing and that it's relatively new, meaning within the last couple of months. So the next episode will be coming out the end of this month. So, I could go back maybe as far as the middle of July or around there, something like that, or as recently within a couple weeks, maybe the middle of this month, if a disappearance catches my eye this month. It just depends. But the only criteria is that the person is still missing and that it's relatively new. Now, as far as the podcast goes, it comes out every Friday. Of course, that's why we're all here. Then it's any missing persons case that it's at least a year old. So it's like the opposite. I'm trying to cover both bases between the podcast and Unfound. Now, Unfound is disappearances that are at least a year old. Unfound now is with disappearances that are relatively new. So there you go. That's my purse. And Kara, good to see you, Kara. Hi from North Carolina. Thank you for a birthday message. Oh, you're very welcome, Kara. Good to see you in here tonight. Thank you for stopping in. And I really appreciate it. You're very welcome. I hope you had a great birthday. So that's my purse. You were very generous with That's My Purse is done. That's My Purse has hit the super chat button. And I appreciate it very much. I will take the support. That's My Purse. And I really appreciate it. Thank you. One more thing before we get into all of the true crime stuff tonight is that I've kind of started altering my schedule. I've said for so long that I've kind of been this going to bed late, getting up late guy, right? Right. I've talked about that many times. And since I came back from Orlando, I've flipped it around. I started looking at how I was using my time. And there were things in looking at it that I thought, I'm not being very efficient with my time. And there were things that I wanted to add back into my life, things that are important that I've been slacking off. And this really, in part, had to do with what went over on in Orlando with me not playing very well and everything. So I've created a new schedule that now I'm getting up at like 7:30 or 8 in the morning. So I'm going to bed sometime between 11 and midnight now and getting up early. And the first thing I'm going out every morning and doing is throwing the discs. And I have a net that I got. And so I'm throwing it into a net up there at the nearby park. And I've been doing that almost every morning since I got back from Orlando. And then on top of that, this is the really big change. I'm going back to the gym. And so I will go up there and I will throw for like an hour. And then I will come back here and go directly to the gym. And I've started just lightly lifting weights about 45 minutes every morning. So about 8:30 to 9:30 throwing, come back, get into the gym at about 10 to like 10:45. Then I'm taking my shower. And then like the next hour, an hour and a half is going to be devoted now to my singing. And then after all of that is done, of course, the rest of the day is writing, working on Unfound, recording, whatever, preparing this live show and whatever else. And then at night, going to bed between 11 and midnight. So this is a big change. But like I said, I just took a long look because I don't like losing. I think some of you know. And I don't like being embarrassed and humbled. And I like to win. I like to win at trivia. I like to win at everything. And I just have to find a way to fit all of these things that are important besides doing the podcast. Of course, podcast is number one. But I just thought, there are other things that I should be doing that I'd like to be doing. And they've kind of gotten away from me a little bit. And so I actually sat down in a spreadsheet and figured out how to fit these things into my life. And the only way that I can do that is altering my schedule. So there you go. And what's nice about going out and throwing in the morning at like 8 and 8:30, it's not hot out yet. And really, I'm going up there and I'm in the shade anyway because I'm throwing into a net. I don't have to be out in the field or anything. So I can go up there. I'm in the shade. The net is only like 10 feet away. And I have multiple discs and I'm working on my form. So I don't have to go chasing any discs. And so far, I think it's working out pretty well. But getting back into the gym is interesting. It's been a while. And I should be doing that because, of course, there's a gym in my building. It's right down there on the second floor. I don't have any excuses. I don't have to have a membership. I don't have to drive anywhere, all of that. And I think what also motivated me is that coincidentally, the gym in this building just got refurbished and there are all new machines and dumbbells in it now. So I think that was also a motivation for me. Somebody is trying to send me a message. And so I said, yeah, I think that's a sign that I need to go back to the gym now that everything's new. So there you go. So it's disc golf in the morning, gym in the morning, then singing. And then the rest of the day is podcast, work, whatever I got to do. And I'm trying to do a lot of that work outside of here. Once again, trying to get me out of this condo, even though it's beautiful and I have a great view and everything else. The way my personality is, it's very easy for me to become a homebody and a recluse very, very easily. Very easily. So there's that. So that's the big change going on with me. And so far, I'm really liking it. That's my purse. My name is a King of the Hill reference. I got to admit, I've never watched one episode of King of the Hill. That's my purse. So there you go. Sorry about that. Sarah, you are also very generous. Sarah, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Carrie, thank you. Hazel said that's actually a very positive change. Well done. Thanks, Hazel. Hazel had some meditation. You'll all be able to conquer anything. Yeah, I don't know if I'm so. I know people say how much meditation helps them and everything, Hazel. I've tried that and I've not had a lot of success with it. I'm a believer that your mind needs to be used. Your mind is just another muscle. And meditation and everything. I know people who do it will say the opposite, but that just feels a little too passive for me when it comes to the mind. I like to be reading a lot. I like to be taking information. That's the way my mind surely works best. I think that's the reason I've been good at trivia and everything. When using your mind and all of that, you don't get good at trivia and being able to figure out disappearances and mysteries and everything by clearing your. Just like I said, I know there's different thinking out there, but just tried it, just doesn't work. All right, let's move into the true crime part of the live show tonight. No poll this week. Of course, this past Friday, I re-aired the first interview that I ever did, coincidentally, with Mary Lyle. If you don't know the Kara Lyle who thanked me for wishing her a happy birthday, that is actually Susie Lyle's older sister. That is Mary Lyle's daughter. If nobody knew that, I don't know. Maybe I just took that for granted. And once again, Kara, I hope you had a great birthday. But we re-aired the first interview I ever did with Mary. And then after that, I talked to you about some of the changes that where I want Unfound to be going over the next year here, starting into year 9. And as far as I can tell, I'm really the only true crime podcast host that kind of thinks in the terms in which I express them in that episode. And that's another thing, kind of going back to working out a new schedule for myself on a daily basis, is refocusing on having an effect outside of cyberspace. Certainly. Certainly, we're doing well there. I think we're covering disappearances as well as any podcast, YouTube channel, TV show that exists, surely. But there's more to it than that. There are a lot of other ways to affect change and getting involved, and I expressed that in that episode. And maybe would also kind of reignites that in my mind, of course, is the recent appearance on the Oxygen Network and other things that have gone on. Us covering disappearances, and some of these disappearances getting solved within weeks, if not a few months. Like, for example, this summer with Ashley Linden. Of course, we had everything that went on last year with Brandon Roberts and the rest of those, all men, coincidentally, in which Bowman, etc., who were found not long after those episodes came out. I don't think they're all coincidences. A few of them may be coincidences, but I don't think they're all coincidences. And that shows that you can have an effect outside of cyberspace. It's more than downloads and clicks and shares and all of that. And we're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see what some police departments say when I contact them and say, "Hey, I want to help you solve some of your disappearances." I'm going to get a lot of rejections. We're going to see how that goes. I am sure that none of these departments will have ever been contacted by Podcaster and going to be requesting what I'm going to be requesting. But I'm 8 years in, 345 disappearances covered. Some of them have been solved. I've spoken to college students. I've been on TV and, testified in a murder trial twice, on and on and on. I mean, what are we doing here? So I went through all of that, and I hope that even though I'm sure that most of you have heard the interview before, I'm hoping that you listened to it again and listened to what I had to say after. And because if you don't know, it's different every year. Something that I think about saying regarding Unfound, the podcast, where it is, where it's going. And I think this was probably, of the times that I've done these anniversary episodes, this was probably the strongest statement and vision that I've ever expressed. Pretty sure. So I'm hoping you listen to the episode, even though I've listened to Mary Lyle's interview before. I get it. Well, remember, Susie's still missing. And then please listen to the entire episode where I get into what I'm going to be trying over the next year. All right, so let's get into some of these headlines that that, of course, are at the top of the screen there. An office death, Florida jogger mystery, and luck plays a role. I'm going to cover all of those stories. And then I want to come back to talking about Steve Pankey sending me 2 letters and Well, I have more to say. And yes, it will be new stuff. It will not be stuff I've said before. It will be new stuff. Sarah, it's very important to value your time. It is, Sarah. Hello from George. Hello, Glenn. What's going on? Quick ER break. Yeah, Glenn works in the ER if nobody knows. Good to hear from you, Glenn. I hope you're doing well out there in the ER taking care of people. Thank you for doing that. This first story comes to us from Tempe, Arizona. Been there. A 60-year-old woman reported to work at a Wells Fargo office building in Tempe, Arizona at 7 a.m. on Friday, August 16th. Her body was found in her cubicle 4 days later. Her coworkers report that they smelled a foul odor in the building, but thought it was a plumbing problem. Denise Prudhomme was pronounced dead by emergency responders just before 5 p.m. on Tuesday, August 20th. So she'd been in there 4 days. She was deceased. One Wells Fargo worker told the NBC station in Phoenix, "It's really heartbreaking." And I'm thinking, what if I were just sitting there? No one would check on me. Prudhomme reportedly worked on the third floor of the building, away from the main workflow area. Furthermore, many employees work remotely. Another employee said their direct management informed them of the death, offered counseling services, and told workers the building was thoroughly cleaned. It's not funny, but the Tempe office is not a bank branch, but it's described as a local headquarters. The Maricopa County Medical Examiner has not yet released the cause of death. The Tempe Police Department's case is still open, but no signs of foul play have been uncovered. Wells Fargo, headquartered in San Francisco, emailed a statement about Prudhomme's death to Patch.com. "We are deeply saddened by the tragic loss of our colleague at our Tempe office. Our thoughts and prayers are with their family and loved ones during this difficult time. Counselors through our employee assistance consulting service are available to support our employees. We are fully cooperating with the Tempe Police Department in their investigation and will direct all further questions to them." I have to admit that at first, this is a very shocking story. On the other hand, if any of you have been to, you'd have to be a blind person not to notice how many bank branches are closing. And it's not because people aren't using banks anymore. It's just that so many people can now do their banking online. And so a lot of the empty buildings, at least around here, that I see these days are former bank branches. On the other hand, what's really weird is a new bank branch was just built like a couple properties down from where my grocery store. So I don't know what to think of that. But you do notice, for example, down in Madeira Beach where I used to live, there was a Bank of America right down the street, all closed up. That's not because people aren't using Bank of America, but we all know, if you need to transfer money and everything, you can just do that online. And of course, we just hope that nothing gets hacked. But I can even remember back to the job that I had in Las Vegas, from not the stage managing job, the other job, where I would go into a lot of title offices and a few banks. And my job was to work on fax machines and printers and things like that. Yes, I had a job like that. Like I said, I've been a jack of all trades, master of none over the course of my life. And I can remember going to a bank branch. This must have been 2009. So 15 years ago. And going into this bank branch, and at one time it was so busy, there were like 2 floors. But even at that time, they weren't using the second floor anymore. And they had all this equipment that was stacked up on that second floor in these cubicles where people used to work, but now it was just being used for storage. And I had to go in there and count all the machines and document it, everything. And I'm thinking, that's kind of when I first started to notice that, the internet was taking over banking. And now here we are 15 years later, and a lot of banking is still being done. And even I know, for example, when I got like 5 years ago, I opened an account at PNC Bank, which is now my main bank. And the branch that I went into to do that is closed now. It's closed here in Pinellas. There's other branches that are still open, but that one is now closed. So when I hear a story about a person dying in a building that is associated with the bank, I can't say that I'm that surprised, because you do have a lot of people that don't work in there anymore. And maybe they still have their job, but they can work from home or do whatever. And people are more spaced out, not spaced out like mentally, but more spread out. There's still cubicles, but little offices or whatever, but they're less people. So people want their space. Why work right next to somebody? You can work somebody, cubicle like 3 or 4 cubicles away. And so it's no surprise to me maybe that somebody died in one of these buildings and nobody noticed. Because like I said, going back to that situation in Riverside, California 15 years ago, that could have easily happened. And that was not the only example that comes to my mind. The other industry that that has had this happen, of course, is the media business too, newspapers, where it used to be, of course, a bunch of reporters, all these cubicles and everything else. And we know that has completely changed as well. And I can remember back in 2018 when I was doing that partnership with the Tribune Review in Pittsburgh, that I went over to their offices in Greensburg, coincidentally where I was born, and just going out onto their main floor and seeing how much of it was empty, where reporters and editors used to work. And of course, that was 6 years ago. So things change. So that's kind of all what goes through my mind when I hear this story about a woman working in a business where you have cubicles and nobody noticed that she had died at her desk. And it took a foul smell to be able to recognize that. And what's also interesting to me is that I'm a big fan of the movie Office Space. And although I've never worked in an office like that. I've never worked in a cubicle. I've never had a cubicle job in my life ever. But, it's still a movie that to me to this day is a really funny movie, Office Space. Of course, it has Jennifer Aniston in it. That helps. But not even Office Space, that movie, which made fun of working in a cubicle and all that kind of atmosphere, even came up with the idea of somebody dying in a cubicle and nobody noticing. So this is one of those situations where reality is stranger than fiction. And really, you think about it, how did they miss that? It's such a great movie about working, kind of a machine, and you're not really a person. You're just a cog in a machine. How did they forget to put somebody, a plot line with somebody dying in a cubicle and nobody noticing? You would have thought that would have been like the first idea that they came up with. I guess not. But that's what came to me. And reading this story, I was like, man, that should have been an Office Space. So there you go. But that's that story. Just very sad. I feel horrible for her family. I'm going to guess, who knows what happened? Heart attack, stroke. A lot of different things could have happened medically. Aneurysm. but anaphylactic shock, maybe from an allergy or something. Don't know. Asthma attack. No signs of foul play, and I'm guessing we'll never know what killed her, but it does seem to me that it was probably some sort of disease or illness or sudden attack of something. And and she was only 60 years old, so there you go. So there's that story. I wanted to pass on to all of you. Stephanie says, is there no cleaning crew? You'd think they would be through the various floors in the course of 4 days. Stephanie, that's a good point. I guess it just depends. Would have to see the layout. And, she's actually sitting at her desk. Maybe somebody thought she was sleeping or something. Maybe she just collapsed over on her desk. Maybe somebody thought she was sleeping. I don't know. I agree with you. But as it states in the story, she was kind of in a remote area. It very well could be the cleaning crew didn't even know she was there. Maybe didn't even think about cleaning that part of the building because they didn't think anybody worked over there. I really can't say. But what you're saying does make sense. Hey, Ed, fishing back in. Hello, Cindy. You say you got hacked. Oh, my gosh, Cindy. I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. Sarah says, Susie Law's case takes place near where I currently live. Okay, near Albany, New York, Sarah. Very interesting. Thank you for pointing that out. Sarah, I heard about that case. That was unbelievable. Yes, the woman who died. Yes. Amy says, I love Office Space customer service. Nina speaking. Just a moment. Just a moment. Somebody has a case of the Mondays. It's so good. Like I said, I can't relate to any of it because all of my jobs pretty much have been working on my feet or riding around in a van or something like that, or working at home like with Unfound. I can't relate to the cubicle atmosphere, although I was in plenty of offices, title companies and banks between 2005, 2009, just looking like down, cubicle after cubicle after cubicle after cubicle after, as far as the eye can see in some of these buildings in Las Vegas and down to Kingman, Arizona, down to Phoenix, Riverside, up into southern Utah, down to San Diego, LA, up to Oxnard area, all over the place. Going to banks and title companies and delivering toner and working on fax machines and printers that weren't working correctly. I did it. It's so crazy. It seems like a completely different lifetime. It's so weird to think that I did that. All of that time driving around by myself in that cargo van. Crazy times. Crazy times. If you'd have told me, of course, podcasting wasn't even a thing back in, 2007, 2008. If you would have told me in 2007, 2008, that what would that be? Let me see, 17 years from then, that I would be on the internet, on YouTube, which was barely a thing back then, doing this and then covering disappearances and everything. I would have thought you are completely out of your mind. Completely out of your mind. It's crazy. You just never know how things are going to go. It's so crazy. All right, let's move on to this. This is a very sad story that comes to us from North Fort Myers. This is an area that got hit very hard by the hurricane that hit in 2022. If you will remember, which I forget even what it was called now. Was it Michael? I forget. But this is an area that got hit by that hurricane very hard. A friend of my brother's, Brian, the guy lives out near the beach. He lost his house. He and his wife lost their house, and everything's bad. It was really, really bad down there. And you can still see the videos. Like there was like a 20-foot storm surge This is that area, and like I said, I've played disc golf down there, North Fort Myers, Estero area. We're going to take a little bit of an analysis, look at now analyze this a little bit. Family members of Ariel Valdez, the missing North Fort Myers woman, confirmed she was found dead Monday. So this is last Monday. They report Valdez left her home to go on a run the evening of Wednesday, August 28th. Traffic cameras spotted Valdez jogging toward the Edison Bridge from the North Fort Myers side that evening. I've been over that bridge. 21-year-old's family was handing out flyers at Terry Park along Palm Beach Boulevard over the weekend in hopes of some answers to her disappearance. They also set up a table at Centennial Park. The Lee County Sheriff's Office intensified its investigation into Valdez's disappearance over the weekend, including searching several areas with its electronic surveillance unit and drones. Midday Monday, NBC2 crews joined LCSO Marine Patrol Team on the Caloosahatchee River. I know I killed that. Within minutes of launching from the dock, deputies got the call that a body was found in the mangroves on the northern bank of the river in between the Edison and Caloosahatchee bridges. Lee County Sheriff's Office released a statement on the search efforts in a Facebook post. According to the post, investigators found remains of a female along the river in North Fort Myers. The remains are presumed to be of Ariel Valdez. According to Lee County Sheriff's Office, preliminary information suggests no indication of foul play. Investigators also do not believe anyone pushed her into the water. Family members say Valdez was battling depression. NBC2 is working to confirm how Valdez died and more details about her disappearance. See, this is the type of story. Now, here is my insight. If Ariel had not been found, and like very quickly, or maybe for several years, my instincts tell me, my experience tells me that most people would be thinking that something happened to her and it was foul play. Even though it was daytime, and obviously she was a jogger, and if something happened, she could run away, and even if somebody pulled up beside her, I think most people would be thinking foul play. But I think the stats, and then, of course, stories like this that pop up are telling us more and more that when we have facts like these, that more and more we should be leaning more toward the idea that the person himself or herself caused their own disappearances. As unusual and irrational it may seem to us otherwise. This is why I think that I diverge so much from most people, I think, in the missing persons community. Not so much maybe you, the public, but people who do cover disappearances, who feature disappearances, or some private investigators, all those types of groups. I think the rest of them are much more likely to think foul play because, as I have been talking about really this year, because of a post that was made on the YouTube channel, that you cannot rely on common sense to figure these things out. You just cannot do that. Because it's obvious to me here that Ariel Valdez ran like she went for a jog every day, and then she jumped off this bridge and died, and then she's found along the side of the river. That's what happened. Doesn't make any sense, seemingly, but that's in our own minds. We don't know. Well, I guess we wouldn't know this beforehand, but we don't know what was in Ariel's mind. All we see, of course, if we knew her, all we see her is her running out of the driveway and she's going for a jog. We don't know what's in her mind. And of course, maybe what could if she hadn't been found, maybe what might have helped us is that, well, she was battling depression. Yes, but a lot of people battle depression and don't jump off bridges and don't commit suicide and don't put themselves in dangerous positions and don't overdose on drugs or don't shoot themselves and everything else. A lot of people suffer from depression. A very low percentage of them ever end up harming themselves because of it. But when we have situations like this, now, on the other hand, the stats or the percentage chance that she was out and had something bad happen to her. Now, if this were at night, like we had that story, was it from Nashville or Memphis, where that woman who would go out running every morning, and she'd been doing that for years, and then she did get attacked and murdered. Now, if Ariel is in the habit of going out and jogging at 11 at night, then yes, I think the percentage chance of her actually meeting with foul play would go up at least a little bit. But still, in my opinion, not that much. And I would be thinking this no matter if they said she was battling depression or not. Once again, we just don't know what is in people's heads. Do joggers get attacked? They do. And it's, of course, mostly women. But most of the time when these things happen, it is not foul play. We even had the story, what was it, from last week? That guy, what was 60 years old? He's with his wife, goes on vacation. Where was it? To Hilton Head. And she says all of a sudden he's starting to act weird. I don't know, what was it, hallucinating or whatever else. They have a video, and I even though I covered the story last Monday, actually since then, I watched that video of him leaving. He just looks like he's going out for a walk in beautiful Hilton Head Island, beautiful area of the country if you've never been there. Just going out for a walk. What happens? He ends up being found dead underneath a nearby house, and he strangled himself to death. Now, you look at that video, and you see if there's anything there that lets you know that that guy was going to commit suicide. Nothing. Yet it happened. Just looks like a guy going out for a walk. We do not know what is in people's heads. We tell ourselves stories. Even though we don't know these people or anything, we start telling ourselves stories. And as I've stated, we just can't rely on that. We think too rationally. We think too logically for these situations. And Kathy's saying, Rachel Morin, certainly. Not saying it doesn't happen. Not saying it doesn't happen. But when we have these situations, men and women, where they run off, they walk off, most of the time it is not foul play. If it were, if you think that the murder rate in the United States is bad now as it is, then it should be a lot worse. But we, over and over, and like I said, I look at missing persons news every day, 7 days a week. You know that I post missing persons stories. I tweet them out, put them in the discussion group, put them on the Facebook page, hoping that you're going to read them and learn a little bit and see what kind of disappearances are happening out there. And you see these stories. Person walked off, found deceased, no signs of foul play. Not strangled, not shot, not stabbed, something. This person caused his or her own disappearance. It's very sad what happened here. And I'm sure she had no reason to do this. I'm sure a lot of people who knew Ariel saying she had no reason to do this. Doesn't matter what we think. Doesn't matter what the people around her thought. It only matters what she thought. It only matters what is in her head. And obviously, there's no way we can tell that. And even when people say what's in their heads, there's no way to know if they're telling the truth or not. And I remember when before this was resolved, I remember reading it and thinking, no, pretty sure I didn't know if she was going to be found deceased, actually. But in reading the story, I'm just like, I think this is a situation where she caused her own disappearance. It's very sad. But it's not a mystery the way we would normally define a mystery. It's only a mystery if you really, really want it to be a mystery. But if you're paying attention to how these kinds of stories usually go, this outcome is not really that surprising. This is the whole issue I have, for example, with the Brianna Maitland disappearance. She wouldn't have done that. She wouldn't do that. She would not do that. We don't know what Brianna would and wouldn't do. That's all speculation. It's all telling ourselves stories. We don't know that. Not saying it wasn't foul play, but I'm at least willing to admit I don't know what's in her head. It's amazing to me how many people think they knew what was in her head. There's no way to know that. No way to know that. Even if she left a note, that doesn't mean that it's true. And so it's so important in analyzing these disappearances to remember that. Of course, as we know, 99.999% of people who go out jogging come back. And then you have that very small percentage that doesn't come back. And then of that percentage, it's even a very, very, very small part that are actually, there's actually foul play. The rest of that small percentage is suicides or accidents, or I can think of that. I talked about this, what was it, a couple months ago? That guy who was into extreme running, had run marathons, and didn't return. And what did they do? They found him, he went out running on some hot day, probably like he had done many, 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 many times before. But something went on that day and something happened, and they found him under a tree. And obviously he had died of like a heart attack or something, heat stroke or something. Even though he had done that run before on the same kind of conditions, for some reason that day, something happened. Maybe no different than when I was just talking about earlier, that day, that time I went out and played that disc golf tournament over here in Largo. And I mean, I'm not even jogging, I'm just walking around. And I felt like I was going to die. And why was it? Because I had a little bit of an illness going on. I should not have been out there. But I thought, I'll fight through it. And I almost lived to regret it. I got home, was laid up for a couple days, got some fluids in me, and then everything ended up being fine. But say instead of playing disc golf, I had been, involved in some 5K race or something. Maybe I don't come back alive. So accidents do happen. Illnesses happen. People like to stick to their patterns. They like to stick, man, I really love running and I really don't want to let it go. No different than me singing. There's probably some singing that I did I shouldn't have done, hurt my voice. All I did was hurt my voice. Some people make that decision to go out to run, do something very physical out in the elements, when they shouldn't do that. And so whatever happens to them is a lot worse than me losing my voice. It's just percentages, here and there and everywhere else. So it's very sad. And I wish I have a hard time. This is one of those situations where, as I've said, like relationships and kids and being married, being that I've never done any of that, I have no room to talk about that. No room for judgment and everything else. And when it comes to people who are suffering from depression or whatever else, this is something that has not been a part of my life. I just don't think I know a lot of this is there's a lot of genetic predisposition for this. Of course, people can put themselves in situations where they become depressed. If you're having money problems, relationship problems, obviously that can greatly affect. But we also know that depression runs in families. Here's what I can say for sure. Knowing my brothers and my sister, and of course, my biological parents are now deceased, but knowing them as well. Depression is not a genetic, at least the way I look at it. Of course, my nephew Charlie is in here once in a while, and he can speak for himself. But looking at my brothers and my sister, we are not genetically predisposed to depression. Um, there's just something that goes along with our attitudes toward life and figuring things out and being happy warriors and all of that. That not to say I can't get mad and sad. I'm just like normal human feelings, but this thing about depression, everything just. But millions and millions, if not billion, people fight this on a daily basis. Certainly, some of it is rational, and a lot of it, I think, is also irrational. Looking at the facts, but you feel a certain way, it's hard to get rid of that feeling. So obviously, Ariel was going through something. Sarah says it sounds like a suicide to me. I have to agree. I have to agree, Sarah. And no. As all of you know, a couple years ago, I went to see I guess what you would call a therapist, but I'm going to a therapist because of some anxiety that I had out on the disc golf course. I wasn't going to see one because of battling depression or anything like that. I had these bad thoughts that would occur to me out on the disc golf course, and I had a hard time overcoming them. But luckily these days, it still happens once in a while, but really the reason I haven't been playing well this year is really because I've been practicing. It has nothing to do with what's going on up here for the most part. Although it does still happen once in a while, but it certainly helped. So I know what it's like to go to a counselor, to a therapist, but not for depression. 70, do you think that not having a tendency toward depression makes the line of work you do easier? Wow, Stephanie, look at you. Probably, Stephanie. That's a really good question. I think, I think you bring up a good point, and this is not to like break my arms, slapping myself on the back, but not everybody can do this. Not everybody can talk to people all the time who have had trauma in their lives and have had loss and everything else. Not everybody can do that. I think what helps for me is how do I put this? It's very, I hope you all take this in the best way possible, but I can very much often be a very cold-hearted bastard in that I look at things very, very black and white, right and wrong, bad choice versus good choice, and, very coldly. And you have to be able to do that in talking to all of the people that I do. I would say that it's very natural for me to be that way. But that's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for. They're not coming. They're not coming to me for a shoulder to cry on. They're not coming to me for me to be their therapist or anything else. Of course, I'm not licensed to do that. I have no experience in that area, although I just have a little bit of on the job training and things from doing this for 8 years. But if it's very easy. And I feel bad for all of these people, but that's not why they're coming to me. That doesn't mean that I don't have a soft side. I do. I do. But when it comes to helping these people, emotions are not what's going to resolve these disappearances. Emotions are not going to do that. And so that's where my kind of mind comes in. So, and like I said, like once again, I think this is what makes me different from advocates who, in my opinion, do get wrapped up in the emotional side and everything. I don't. And maybe that's also part of the competitive nature that I have. I want to win. And winning means resolving these disappearances. And to do that, I think that you have to be very cold-hearted regarding the facts and telling these people the truth, and sometimes telling them that they're probably wrong about that, and probably telling probably that was the wrong thing to do, and you may want to try this. So, I agree. I guess I'm so the one word answer, Stephanie, is yes. Hello, Mary B. What's going on with you? Good to see you, Mary B. Hazel says, I'm highly sensitive emotionally and have difficulty reading certain stories. I'm a crisis counselor for 988, Sarah says, and I hear this all the time. Hazel, I rarely watch or read anything regarding children, And Amy says, detaching. Yeah, detached. Right. You have to stay detached from the emotional side of it. Because as I've stated before, what you find a lot of times, especially with disappearances that are somewhat old, you find that many of these families have like an entourage of yes people who are really managing the family's emotions, and they're feeling sorry for them. And you find people that are kind of tiptoeing around them or walking on eggshells around them and all those things. And I would say that none of that helps solve disappearances at all. That's what I would say. And unfortunately, what happens is that you get too emotionally wrapped up, and then you have a hard time being truthful with people. This is no different than, like, if you want to use an example, like Prince. Why did Prince die of a fentanyl overdose? Why did that happen? Because everybody around him knew he was doing it, and they were afraid to say anything because they thought that they'd get fired if they stopped them. That's why. That's why. Very sad. But they wanted to be around Prince, because who wouldn't want to be around Prince? The craziness and spectacularness that was Prince. But being around somebody like that means you can't be truthful with that person. And that's how a lot of famous people, not just musicians, but actors, athletes, they have these entourages that are only in it for themselves. And they'll just tell these famous people anything that they want to hear. And when I see it with disappearances, it's kind of the same thing. With some families having, a great group, a bunch of people who've been helping them, but I don't know how much truth is being told. Those people were trying to help Prince too, but not in the way they should have been. So this is kind of the way I look at it, and you just have to be like detached. You have to be cold-hearted and that type of stuff. And I'll admit, sometimes it ticks some people off. They're not used, after being around people who are, stroking their egos and watching what they say and managing their emotions. And then they run into me, and some people have been turned off. No. Way it goes. Hello, Marty. What's going on with Marty? Marty got in here. Finally, thank you for making time tonight, Marty. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. Just had my son's 6th birthday party yesterday. Wow. Okay, Marty. Well, at least you didn't miss the think tank yesterday, Marty, because we didn't have one. We took a week off. And tread lightly, Marty. Welcome back. All right, Marty, and everybody going back and forth. So that is Ariel Valdez. Very sad. Moving on. Luck plays a role. And this is a story that comes to us from my former home state of Pennsylvania, although not near where I grew up in Pennsylvania. And this is where luck plays a role. The body of a man found frozen in a small Pennsylvania cave nearly 50 years ago has finally been identified 50 years ago. The remains of Nicholas Paul Grubb, G-R-U-B-B, 27, of Fort Washington, were discovered in January of 1977 by 2 hikers who had ducked inside the cave to escape some bad weather. Grubb has long been known as the Pinnacle Man, a reference to the Appalachian Mountain peak near where his body was found. An autopsy at the time found no signs of foul play and determined that he died from a drug overdose. Authorities, though, could not identify Grubb's body from his appearance, belongings, clothing, or dental information. Fingerprints were collected during his autopsy, but somehow were misplaced, according to the Berks County Coroner's Office. Berks County is in eastern Pennsylvania. Detectives from the state police and investigators with the coroner's office had periodically revisited the case over the past 15 years, and Grubb's body was exhumed in August 2019 after dental records linked him to 2 missing persons cases in Florida and Illinois. DNA samples did not match in either case, but a break came last month when a Pennsylvania state trooper found Grubb's missing fingerprints. Within an hour of submitting the card to NAMUS, an FBI fingerprint expert matched them to Grubb. A relative of Grubb was notified of the discovery, and family members asked the coroner's office to replace his remains in a family plot. And that's just one article. And it sounds to me like this guy was kind of a nomad a little bit. And that's why they really, and I'm not even sure he was even from Pennsylvania. But this just shows you, of course, we've covered this so much on Unfound, how luck does play a role in disappearances, whether it's with Esther Westenbarger or Robbie Hurt or Crystal Morrison or Bo Mann, whoever else. People who are found not due to some logical investigation process. People who are, and sometimes they're vehicles like Esther, and they're just happened upon by accident. Many, many, many disappearances have been solved this way. There is no, as far as this Grubb guy, there is no, to bring up the 2 words again, common sense investigation that surely ever would have led anybody to that cave where his remains were. Nothing. Zero. And I'm convinced that there are many, many thousands of missing people just like this, where there is no logical way to get to where these people's remains are. And those ones will have to be solved by luck. Now, so really when it comes to, Unfound, what we're really trying to work on is working on ways to kind of look at the facts and try to figure out where these people are and lower that luck, which is a huge part of the disappearance pie. And of course, some of these disappearances are going to be murders. But I think a lot of them also are going to be suicides. Mr. Grubb here died of a drug overdose. Very sad. But we have to find a way to somehow lower the percentage that are solved through luck. And we have to try to figure out a way to raise the percentage of ones that can be solved by good investigation processes. Because right now, I'm not sure we have any investigation processes. So, Amy says kismet, as I called it. Yeah, luck. Yes, thank you, Amy. However, in hearing about this disappearance that was solved, and I think I've brought these unidentified remains up a couple times before on this live show. You can go look them up. You can Google it. There is a set of remains that were found in a cave outside of Las Vegas in, I think, 2005. And they were also found in a cave by luck. The difference is that these remains have still not been identified. And what's also important about this guy who they're calling Sandstone Doe, this guy was murdered. When they found his remains inside this cave, there was a bullet hole in his skull, just like, for example, there was a bullet hole in Janelle Matthews' skull. And it's obvious this was not a suicide. There was no gun at the location. And in fact, somebody had shot this guy execution style and then carried his remains up to this cave, put the body in this cave, and actually stacked rocks in front of the cave. And in fact, that is what brought some hikers or something to this cave. They were hiking in this area and saw these rocks stacked in front of this cave entrance and thought, well, that's weird. Out here in the middle of nowhere, why are these rocks stacked like this? So they went up to check these rocks. And of course, they peered. Oh, it's a cave. They peered inside and saw the bones. But this guy was executed. You can look him up. Sandstone Doe. And they have a kind of a sketch of what the guy might have looked like when he was alive. And they have pictures of his clothes and his shoes and everything. I will tell you, I've convinced myself that this guy is not an American citizen. And the reason I say that is because it seems that something that I think, this is one of those little pieces of information that sticks out to me, is that at the time of his execution, he was actually getting a root canal done. So if you've ever had a root canal done, sometimes they'll put a temporary, they'll go in, they'll do something, but then you have to come back later or go back to your regular dentist. I know this because, of course, I had a root canal done in 2000 that finally cracked, and they had to put a bridge back here finally last year. But then I had a root canal done on it, and this is all because I grind my teeth when I sleep, but I have a mouth guard now. But I had a root canal done on this tooth up here last year or the year before. It's one of those things, you go to a specialist that does that. And then, at least for me, I go back to my regular dentist to get, a permanent cap put on it. Oral surgeons don't do that. And at least the way it worked out for me. Well, what they're saying is that the guy who got executed had the root canal done, but he was in the process. It was still like a temporary thing on that root canal tooth. And it was between that and I guess eventually getting a permanent put on is when this guy got executed. Well, as you expect, getting that type of work done is not cheap. And this tells me that probably this guy who was executed was a person of means, which means he was somebody in society or doing something. And trust me, although I've not done this recently, I have tried to track down who I think this might be. And there's just nothing, because of the way the remains were, they could actually predict when this guy died. And if you go back and try to find disappearances that happen using like NamUs, there's nothing. There's not one man on NamUs that could be this guy who ended up being found in this cave. And because of that, and also when I look at his clothes, it just doesn't seem like the kind of clothes that an American would wear in the Las Vegas area. Just having lived there for 13 and a half years, it just kind of struck me. I think this guy is from another country. And maybe that's the reason he's not been identified. Did he come here for a vacation and got executed? Was he in the Russian mafia or something? And he came to Las Vegas and got executed and they put him there. That's kind of the way I'm leaning with this sandstone dough. If you want to check it out, once again, all I have to do is do a Google search for sandstone dough. So SANDSTONE space DOE. And you can check it out for yourself if you'd like to look into that. But being he's executed, being the clothes, and like I said, he's getting a root canal, and in the process of getting a root canal finished, he gets executed. That certainly is something weird. And being that it just gives the kind of idea, this is somebody that if he went missing in the United States, somebody would have filed a missing persons report somewhere for a guy like this. But there doesn't seem to be anything. And especially considering, well, a guy went to Vegas, never came back. This is what, like I said, leads me more and more to believe this guy came to the United States for something, and then something went wrong while he was here, I think. So you want to check that out, and that kind of, like I said, goes along with the story I just talked about in Pennsylvania. This man who'd been missing for 50 years found in a cave by accident. Amy says Daniel Robinson and Susan Powell. Yeah, Susan Powell. And Daniel Robinson. I have to agree. Of course, I think everybody knows that Susan Powell's dead. And as far as Daniel Robinson, I think it makes all the sense. I think the statistic would say that Daniel Robinson is deceased as well. And I realize I've seen all the videos that his father has done and thinking foul play. I just don't see it. But you're probably right. As far as Susan Powell, yeah, there's certainly no investigation process that's going to be able to figure out where she is. With Daniel Robinson, I'm not so sure. Not yet. I think as long as they keep searching that area around where, what was it, a Jeep or whatever it is, I think that they will find him. I don't believe he went that far. And I say this all the time. Well, how can you say that? Everybody's been down there doing all these searches. You're denigrating the searches. I'm just telling you what statistics say. So with Susan Powell, it's certainly going to be luck. With Daniel Robinson, I'm still hopeful that this is a situation more like Eric Pratt, where they changed their thinking and found him deceased, unfortunately deceased. Marty says the Daniel Robinson case is such a crazy one, Amy. I hope one day the family can find answers. Luck will have to be involved. Sarah, do you feel some guests have enabled band behavior and may have contributed to their loved ones' disappearances? That's a touchy subject, Sarah. I'll just, if you're just looking for a yes or no answer, I'll just say yes, and I'll just leave it at that. Susan Powell's case is so, Hazel's saying, is so heartbreaking, involving her children. Yeah, Josh Powell took the children, blew up the house, I agree, Hazel. Her and her kids never had a chance. Yeah, Josh Powell was one bad guy. Yeah. Karen, I've been on hospital duty and missing your show. It was so great to catch up with you tonight. Hello, Karen. What's going on, Karen? Hospital duty. You have hospital duty. You're the, I think Glenn does hospital duty too, Karen. What do you do in a hospital, if I can ask? Marty says, Daniel Robinson's dad is so dedicated to finding his son and just hoping he can find something. That man is working tirelessly trying to find him. I agree, Marty. Like I said, I don't know anything more about the disappearance than any of you do. I've never spoken to anybody in Daniel's family. I've never spoken to his father or anything. I think, though, that there would be more likely to get a successful conclusion if we're to believe he's deceased, if the whole foul play theory is just scrapped. In my opinion. Oh, you're in Toronto. I've been through Toronto many times in my life, Karen. I've been up to Rice Lake. What is that? An hour and a half, 2 hours above Toronto. I go up there, go across the Peace Bridge in Buffalo. And then I take what is the 405 or whatever that toll road is to get around Toronto. I know that area of Canada very, very well, Karen. Moss Def enabling is, I don't know what that means. Moss Def, in all kinds of ways, probably inevitable. Moss Def, he's definitely a warrior for his son. Amy says, Karen, I can't believe how long your hair is and looking luxurious. It is luxurious. That's a great word for my hair, Karen. Luxurious. Thank you for saying so. And it is my own. This is not a wig. Marty says, I agree, Ed. I don't see foul play as an option in Daniel's case. All right. Whereas it's obvious to me that, his family and others are trying to cook up the idea that there was some sort of cover up and everything else. I don't see it. Of course, I hope Daniel's still alive. And in fact, I will say this. It's much more likely that Daniel is still alive than that he was murdered. Surely. I don't think there's even a question. Of course, hope that he's still alive. Of course, the odds of that are not very high. All right, let's go back to this. And it has to do, let me see here. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I didn't know most definitely enabling is so common in all kinds of ways. Yeah, most definitely. All right, I got you, Amy. Karen, how's your dad? I've missed your trips. Visiting him. My dad is doing spectacular. I talked to him today, and he was taking his lady friend who lives across the street. Her refrigerator died. So he was driving her over to Lowe's so she could pick out a new refrigerator. That was what my dad was doing when I called him today. So he's doing fantastically. Fantastically. Hello, Cranky99. What's going on tonight? Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, let's talk. Of course, it's going to be a topic until it's not a topic anymore. And that is Steve Pankey. Now, here's what I'm going to reveal a little more than what I said a couple weeks ago. Of course, many of you caught the Girl in a Milk Carton show. I know I can't say series. It was only 2 episodes. For it to be a series, it has to be like 4 or 5 episodes. Something has to be 4 or 5 episodes, right? So I'm just going to call it a show that was on the Oxygen channel 2 weeks ago. And as I told you at the time, of course, that was the long YouTube, the long live show from 2 weeks ago. It went like 2.5 hours, in which I went through everything. You know, and I told you there was things in that I had not heard before, and I'm not going through all of it again. But what I did was, because there were some surprises there were topics not covered when I interviewed Steve way back in 2019, that I sent him a letter the very next day with a bunch of questions. Things that were brought up in the show that I had not known, that he never brought up in the interview that I did with him, that I don't even think were brought up in the trials. And I thought, well, you know, I got a lot of questions here. I'm going to send these to Steve, and I'm going to expect him to answer them. And I think I told you at the time, but I didn't tell you what those questions were. Tonight, I'm going to tell you what those questions were. Now, you should know, since I sent that letter to him, I mailed it the next day. Has to be the next day. I did it that night, mailed it the next day. So 2 weeks ago, whatever date that would have been in August. And since then, I've gotten 2 letters from him, and neither of them answered any of my questions. And so I'm going to give him until the end of the week to maybe send me his answers to the questions. If not, I'm going to give him one more chance. And if he's not going to answer any of these questions, and I'm telling you, my communication with him is over. I'm telling you that. Because I'm in the information business. I'm not in the feel sorry for a convicted murderer business. The only reason I'm communicating with him is to get information. And when I stop getting information, then I'm done. I'm in the information business. I'm not in the legal business. I'm not in the advocating business. I'm not in the entertainment business. I'm in the news business, and really, I'm in the information business. I'm here to get stuff. I'm here to collect information. I'm here to get data. I'm here to get people to tell me things. That's why I'm here. And when people don't want to ask questions, then I just, this is what, once again, this is one of the reasons I don't talk to police. They don't tell you anything. All right? I don't talk to people who don't tell me anything. That's a waste of my time. So here are the questions that Steve has yet to answer. And if I do not get a letter from him with these answers by the end of the week, I will give him one more chance. I will send him and I'll tell him, you don't answer them, we're done. I got no time for this. So here are the questions. And these all come from topics covered in the show The Girl on the Milk Carton. Every one of these questions comes from that. So here they are. And I'm just let me see here. Last time I was able to tune in, you bought an air fryer. Man, it's been a while, Karen. I got that air fryer. Wow, I think I got that with a gift certificate that my dad got me for Christmas or something. Man, that must have been like a year and a half ago, Karen. Wow, okay. It does get used. I love it. Did you enjoy it? I'm still making my chicken wings, although not recently, but I don't make chicken wings in the air fryer. I tried that. I don't like it. I have to do them in the hot oil on the stove, or they just don't taste right to me. But I've not made any wings since I got back from seeing my dad at the beginning of August. For whatever reason, just really hasn't been on my mind. I'm sure I will do them again eventually. But yeah, it's been a while. If the last time you tuned in was the air fryer, that was like a year and a half ago. Welcome back. Mary died in the elements. You're talking about Daniel Robinson. Then I hope he answers many, Ed. That case will surely bug me forever, Mary B says. So he best pass on some info then, and I don't blame you. All right, so here are the questions. Once again, you can watch the show. It's on Peacock. If you don't have that, I'm sorry. I don't have it, but I DVR'd it, so I can watch it anytime I want if I'd like. All of these questions, once again, I'll say it one more time. All of these questions come from things that popped up in that show. Number one, this came up. How did you know two cops lived on the same street as Janelle? And I put, it's in your handwriting. They show that right in the show. It's in his handwriting. So I asked him, well, how did you know that? How did you know two cops lived on the same street as Janelle? Good question, right? Pretty good question. You know me, I ask great questions. Next question. Did you know Detective Cash was in the same class as Janelle's older sister? That came out in the show. That's something I did not know that. Why didn't your lawyers challenge this? Is this not a conflict of interest? Now, as you can imagine, I've read, all of you know, over the past year, I've read parts of the letters that Steve has sent me. The parts that I've left out is all of the bad things he said about Detective Prill and Detective Cash. I've left that. For the most part, I've left those out. If you only knew. Moving on. Next question. And this came from something that Rourke said. If you can watch it on Peacock or if you DVR'd the show, he said something to the effect that we had proof that Steve had been following some of his former coworkers or something like that. He said something to that effect. That's news to me. Of course, Russ Ross told me he never thought that Steve was ever following him around. In addition, I don't think that was actually ever presented at either trial. So I asked Steve, did Rourke actually present proof in either trial that showed you were following Russ Ross or any other employee from the bottling plant? That's news to me. If that actually happened in either trial, that's news to me. I've never seen the transcripts of either trial, but that's certainly news to me. And nobody's ever told me that. So I asked him, did D.A. Rourke, the guy, of course, who first contacted me about going out there, actually present proof in either trial that showed you were following Russ Ross or any other employee? Next question that I asked him, and this came up in the show, why did you write that novel? Remember, there was a novel. If some of you have seen the show, he wrote a novel kind of making himself as the main character or something like that. Why did you write that novel? Like I said, these are strong questions. I took my time. Next question I asked him. After you first went to police in 1985, why didn't you keep going back to them if you believed that you had information that could solve Janelle's murder? Next question. Of course, this was brought up by his ex-wife, Angela, and it had to do with their dogs. I asked him, what did you do with your Great Danes? Or did this not really happen? What did you remember? She claims that that they took off to California on a moment's notice, and she says that Steve did something to their dogs. To this day, she's not sure what happened to them. I guess she kind of is inferring or insinuating, which one word is it, that he might have killed them. There's no proof of that, but it is something that's brought up in the show. And so I simply asked Steve, well, what did you do with those dogs, with those Great Danes? And or did this not happen? I asked him that. I asked him, what about that car that Angela said? What about that car that Angela said was on fire? Did this happen? And if it did, why? Like I said, I think you can now understand why I want answers to these questions. Next question that I asked him, once again, all from the show. And if you've not seen the show, this would all make sense to you. Next question that I asked him. Did you really yell false prophet in church after pastor said Janelle would come home alive? This is a story that his ex-wife Angela told. I asked Steve, did that really happen? And if that happened, why did you do that? Next question. Why was money in the 1990s going to legal fees? What was going on there? Let me catch up on everything now. Hazel says, good to hear taking a stand with Panky. Super slippery, in my opinion, and that's putting it mildly. Well, I'm gonna try to paint him into a corner as much as I can, Hazel, with these questions, because that's what I do. Yeah, I ask tough questions, even of guests. I'm in the information business, not the legal business. The 600 air fryer recipes cookbook is good. Speaking of air fryers, okay, I'll keep that in mind, Stephanie. Like I said, can't do wings in them though. They're great for French fries and baked potatoes and things. The wing thing just never works out. Thank you, Hazel. Mary, okay, yes. Karen said 2 interviews. I really enjoyed listening to our Aaron and Benji's story with his mom and the girl twins that went missing in Florida. Their mom was terrific. Yeah, Joyce Rivatuza, one of my favorite people, Karen. Yeah, Aaron Barnard, I think is maybe what you're thinking of. And right. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate the compliment. Maybe. Ed, what's the name of that show again? I may be able to get a bootleg version of it. I told my fiance I want him to watch it with me. It's called The Girl on the Milk Carton. It originally aired on the Oxygen Network on August 25th. It is now on the Peacock channel, like Netflix. You can just, if you have that, you can just watch it anytime. So once again, the question I just said, why was money in 1990s going to legal fees? What was actually going on there? And then the next thing wasn't so much it was a question, but I was wondering if he really understood why they really got hot on Steve in 2019. Remember, you have to remember something. I did not know this. I had no idea until I watched the show a couple weeks ago that this is what happened. that for the most part, the police had forgotten about Steve Pankey. Despite how weird he acted in the 1980s and all of that, they had forgotten about him. But when they reopened the file for Janelle, they, of course, came across all these names, including Steve's. But the funny thing is, at first blush and their first eyeing of all the information, the police were actually more suspicious of Russ Ross, which makes sense. He was the one who claimed he dropped Janelle off that night. Who can argue with that thinking? And really, in addition to that, Steve actually brought up Russ Ross back in 1985. So being that they were suspicious of Russ Ross and Steve Pankey brought up Russ Ross, they thought, we're going to track Steve Pankey down. They actually went to Steve looking for more information on Russ Ross. Can you believe that? Steve was not even, the way it's portrayed in the show, Steve was not even on their radar as a suspect. It wasn't until they went to talk to Steve, who was in Idaho, living in Idaho, and started asking him about Russ Ross and how he reacted to them talking to him, that they came away thinking, you know what? We're thinking Steve Pankey is the one who caused Janelle's disappearance. Remember, at this time, Janelle's remains had not even been found yet. Remember that. They went to Steve hoping to get incriminating information on Russ. They came away talking to Steve thinking Steve should be our main suspect. Remember that. Once again, watch it. You'll see. And the question I asked Steve is, was he aware of this? Was he aware when they went to speak to him in April of 2019, so like 3 months, coincidentally, before Janelle's remains were found, did he understand that he was not a person of interest at the time? And that they were actually looking for information on Russ Ross? And that it was Steve's own behavior that ended up making Steve suspect number one. I asked Steve this. The way I put it is, are you familiar with the change of events that led to police contacting you in 2019? Here it is. In January 1985 report that police took from you, you mentioned Russ Ross. In April of 2019, Detective Cash came across that report. So he talked to Russ Ross and your name came up. And actually, when police contacted you in April 2019, they were actually looking for incriminating evidence on Ross. Instead, they came away from that discussion thinking that you were the one who caused Janelle's disappearance. Are you aware of that, Steve? Are you aware of that? And I said, that's how it happened. At least that's the way it was portrayed in the show. And I even tell him, once again, I'm reading exactly from the letter that I sent him 2 weeks ago. I say to him, had you not been so paranoid and suspicious in April 2019 and just stuck with your 1985 statement, my guess is police never would have given you another thought. I just thought you'd want to know, I told him. I did it. That's how it went. I wrote that to him. And once again, he's not answered any of these questions yet. And I continued on. Did you really tell a cop that you buried bodies in Colorado? This came up from something that went on in Idaho. Did he get pulled over for speeding? I don't even remember. But he allegedly said to some law enforcement person up there, Don't mess with me. I've buried bodies in Colorado. This came out in the show. And I asked Steve, did you really say that? If not, if so, why would you say that? And then finally, I asked him, just very simply, did you rape Deb Moon? Because that came up in the show. I can say her name. The name is in the show. I'm not leaking any information there. Those were all the questions I sent him 2 weeks ago. Since then, he sent me 2 letters that have nothing to do with any of this. So I know maybe some of you think that, well, I'm so in the bag for Steve Pankey and I've defended him and everything else. Let there be no doubt that I'm trying to get as much out of him as possible, and I don't care where it goes. I'm not pulling any punches with Steve Pankey, ever. That has never happened, ever. I think my 3+ hour interview showed it, and now these questions that I sent him show it. I'm not being his lackey or anything else. And I swear to all of you, if he does not answer these questions, I'm going to give him a chance. I'm going to give him another chance. I'm going to give him one more chance. I'm going to send, if I don't get anything from him by the end of the week regarding these questions, I will send him a very pointed letter with all of these questions again. If he does not answer them, I'm done. All right, I'm done communicating with him. That doesn't mean I won't still try to do things, but I'm done communicating with him. I promise you that. It's just, it's no different than when I interviewed him originally. Remember what the rule was. You want to come on my podcast, totally fine. I get to ask you any question. And if you don't answer the question, this interview is over and it will never see the light of day. Now, of course, we now know that he lied about certain things, but he at least gave answers. And it's this, that continues to this day. You got to answer my questions or I'm moving on. I got no time. I got no time for any of this. So what's everybody saying? Karen says, is he guilty? Why are you going over all these questions? I'm not knowing. These are all questions that came from the show that came out 2 weeks ago, Karen. These are things that I did not know, that are news to me, that have never come up between me and Steve. And I want to see what he says about them. Of course, he was found guilty. He's in jail. He's in jail for the rest of his life. I've made the point that I do not think that the prosecution proved its case. I'm not saying he didn't kill Janelle. I'm saying that I don't think that they proved his case, proved that he murdered Janelle. But all of this stuff came up, and I'm trying to get him. Why are we going over all these questions? I'm telling you all. Karen, I know you haven't been around for a while. I've been communicating with Steve Pankey in jail for the last year. Letters back and forth. And these are questions that I sent him recently. I'm trying to get answers. These are questions that popped up from the show that came out 2 weeks ago called The Girl on the Milk Carton. Hazel says, I'm thinking the cops recognized psychopathic traits in Pankey that made him suspect him. So they came to the conclusion that Steve Pankey had pointed to Russ Ross to lay the blame elsewhere. Could be, Hazel. Mary, Girl in the Milk Carton, okay, and we just let our Peacock sub run out this month. Of course, I will surely watch it. Pankey is truly and madly impossible. No wonder, Hazel says, no wonder he didn't want to answer. Well, I'm not here to kiss his butt. Those were hard-hitting questions, and I guess he needs time to make up plausible answers. Well, I don't know. Good, and I wonder if he can competently answer questions fully with straight answers. It really seems that impossible. Ugh, why not answer them? Well, I don't know. I'm going to give him one more chance, Mary, and then we'll see. And if he doesn't answer them by next Monday, if I don't hear from him by next Monday, I will be talking about this next week as well. So I just wanted you, because I had talked about sending him a letter. I had not told you what the questions were, but now that he's not answered me, I think all of you have the right to hear what the questions were. And maybe now, maybe, I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't have good answers for them. I guess we'll find out. And trust me, if he writes me back and he answers those questions, I will post the answers on all the places where Unfound is, and I will go over all the questions and answers on this live show when the time comes. All right, let's move to this Friday. We get back into the disappearance business this Friday after an update episode and an anniversary episode. We're going to Texas, covering the disappearance of Matthew Keith, Keith. He went missing roughly on February 15th of 2011. His wife, Joy and Matthew's niece, Allie, are the guests. Matthew Keith had some problems with the law. He was an alcoholic and some things, and he went on a probation violation. And he ended up going to see family in Tennessee, and then somehow he ended up in Mexico. Came back over the border into El Paso, got arrested there, spent, 6 to 8 months in jail in El Paso. And then he served his time, got out, and he was allegedly given a bus ticket to go back to where his family, his wife, and kids lived in Marshall, Texas. And he never ended up there. The El Paso Police Department claims that they have a voucher. They gave him a voucher to get a bus ride back to Marshall, Texas. They dropped him off at the bus station, and that was that. They never saw him again. Well, he never ended up back in Marshall, Texas, and he has been missing ever since. So 13 and a half years now. And you should know what I was able to do, though, for Matthew's family is that he got arrested with another guy whose name is Tony Falcon. And I was able to track him down. They didn't know where he was. This is kind of one of the things I do behind the scenes. I was able to track Tony Falcon down with the help of Jill, because Jill is a specialist in Arizona stuff. Found out that Tony Falcon is currently in jail in Arizona. And I recommended to Matthew's family that they should write Tony Falcon in jail to see if he knew that Matthew is missing. So that is this Friday, the disappearance of Matthew Keith. He went missing from El Paso, Texas on roughly February 15th of 2011. His wife, Joy, and his niece, Allie, are the guests. That will be this Friday. And tomorrow night, I'm doing the interview for next Friday's episode. Got a lot of great people I've been talking to. This summer's been very good at reaching out to people. I really cannot complain. So, and you'll be hearing all these people eventually. I've got kind of juggling like 4 or 5 different guests and disappearances right now. But I'm pretty sure most of them are going to happen eventually. So that's all I have for you tonight. A little bit of everything. And that's it. I hope you all have a great week. Stay safe out there. Keep your heads on swivels. Are you and Lorden still doing podcasts together, Karen? I've not done anything with John since Jason Landry. When was that? Early 2022 or something? That was that. Charlie, I'm going to send you a text about October, by the way. Be looking for that after I'm done here. But everybody keep your heads on swivels and be safe out there. Charlie, I hope you said hi to the kids for me. And you'll hear me all on Friday for the disappearance of Matthew Keith. And please do not forget, try to support Unfound, whether by hitting the join button below or at patreon.com/Unfound podcast. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Hazel. Thank you, Serenity. And that's it. Good night.